Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. We're surrounded by books. That means we have a few options nowadays. It's either a book haul, a book recommendation, or an author's diary video. Today, we are going to do an author's diary video. I started this, I think, 3-4 weeks ago. I can't remember. But I gave a brief overview introduction of me actually being a published author. Here is my book, Upside Down, by yours truly. And I talked a little bit about how I became an author, that process, but I decided we're just gonna do little entries to talk about specifics, because when I made that first video, I tried to talk about the entire process, and then as I was editing it, I realized I left some things out unintentionally, but like I didn't go in with a script. I just put the camera up and I started talking, and I was like, we'll see what happens. So I'm going to try to just break down little entries every now and then with a specified topic of what we'll talk about. So in this video, we're gonna focus primarily on writing the book, what that was like for me, how I came up with the idea, and so forth. Yeah, so I mean, you technically don't have to watch my first author's diary video, but it makes sense because it's an overview. The videos from now on are just gonna be specified certain pieces of how I became a published author. So do with that what you will. But let's get into the writing. As you can see, she's not super thick, a quick read. It's 158 pages, but also I did not choose the sizing of like what my book would be. As you can see, some of the books on my shelf, they aren't formatted this way. Some of them are shorter and not as wide. So with that being said, that's why it became 158. I think when I was writing this book, which I wrote it in Google Docs, it was around 193, maybe 200 pages. So I thought that would translate when the book was published. But just keep that in mind, the way you format the book when you're writing, and then how it's formatted when it's published can change page count. But I did start writing the book in Google Docs, but prior to that, we're gonna go back in time. I don't know if everyone knows this, but Wattpad was a thing. Wattpad, you could write books, you could read books, so forth. It was very popular when I was younger, in like middle school and high school, definitely more so in middle school. So I would read books on Wattpad, but I also would write. I had 2 books. I'm forgetting what one of them is, but it was a basketball romance set in high school. That was a time. And then I had my book Upside Down, and both of them were published. I was writing them as I pleased. I wasn't one of those Wattpad authors that was good at updating. I was just, whenever inspiration would spark, I would do something and publish a chapter. So I had both of them published on Wattpad or whatever. And then I kind of fell off on the writing, but I left them, up there just to see what would happen if more people would read it, add it to their library, leave comments and so forth, because on Wattpad you can also comment and then react to other people's comments, have conversations with people, so forth. And yeah, I just kind of left that be. I was like, done with that. It's fine, no big deal. And I stopped reading also for a time, and which I go more into detail about this in the overview video. But essentially, I started reading again, and my mom kind of just said to me, you read so much, you could write a book. I was like, well, little did she know, I'd already started writing stuff on Wattpad. I just hadn't updated it in a couple years. So I went back and I was like, Upside Down actually has, a lot of potential to be something real. It's dystopian, futuristic, sci-fi vibes. I feel like that could go somewhere. And also at this time, when I started reading again, a lot of authors who started on Wattpad were getting their books traditionally published. Some of them were getting them published through Wattpad, because I don't know exactly if it's just like Wattpad company or Wattpad publishing or whatever, but there is a way now that authors have written on Wattpad. I guess Wattpad will reach out to them or so forth and actually publish it. And it has like the little Wattpad W logo on it. And then some of them have gotten them published by other publishing companies, but they started out on Wattpad. So I was feeling like, this is my time to shine. Like, I know Wattpad, I can do something. So I took the story off of Wattpad, and I really just like unpublished it, because I still, want to have what I started with up there. So I unpublished it. I only had a couple chapters. I want to say maybe between 5 and 10. That could be wrong, but I think in that range, 5 and 10 chapters published. So I unpublished it. I transferred it over to Google Docs, because that's what I was using in like school and stuff. So I was familiar with Google Docs, so naturally just made that transition. I copy and pasted. And just also for reference, like, you might think you've written a lot on Wattpad until you transfer it to Google Docs and it's barely a chapter. But I feel like if you were tuned in to Wattpad back in the day, the chapters felt long, and Wattpad, I don't know, it felt like it was long. When you transfer it, it's really not that long. So I kept the basis of what was in each chapter and elongated it from there. I didn't have all of my characters fleshed out or anything like that from the Wattpad version. And I'll try to see if I have that anywhere so you can like get a little glimpse of it, not too much. But I don't know if I completely removed it from Wattpad or if it's still just like unpublished. But it was a time. And it was like I had the idea, had some of it started, but then it was fleshing it out so it's actually making sense and bringing in more characters, but trying to connect the dots to where these characters come into play. I knew from the start that I wanted to do multiple POVs. POVs is point of view, because I just felt like I enjoy multiple POV books, especially if there's a lot of characters and they're not always all together, separate places, so forth. It gives you a different, viewpoint of what's going on in this story. And because my story was taking place, the wealthy live above the clouds and the poor live on Earth's surface, I was like, multiple POVs has to happen in this book. And I started that on Wattpad when it was published, but it needed more work, to say the least. Also, the cover that is on this book now was not the cover that I had for Wattpad. Again, I can try to see if I have that somewhere. But I just made a little something because you can also put covers on the book so people can see if this is something they're interested in. And then if so, read the little summary blurb. So this was not how things started. But I used that when I was like reaching out to publishing companies and then heard back from Dorrance about it. It was inspiration for what I wanted on the cover because I didn't have the skill sets at the time. I feel like I do now, but at the time I did not have the skill sets to do that myself. But I was like, this is the vibe that I'm kind of going for. And also with Google Docs, which I didn't know this when I originally did the transfer and started writing in there. You can like change your margins and everything so it'll fit a book format. That was not the case when I started writing. It wasn't until towards the end of when I was about to complete this book that I found that out, and I changed it, and it will change all of your format. You'll think you'll have all these pages written. That's not the case because you were not in the correct format. So I have, you know, I know that now, but like back then I didn't. So that's something to just look into. And again, it's not like I was a professional. I was just going on a whim. My mom said I could do it, and I was like, yeah, I can. So I did that little transition. And what I did like about Google Docs is I could put like little comments on the side. So say I was like, the cat jumped over the moon, and I do press highlight moon or whatever, and then in the comments be like, look for a better word of this, or who says this, and they'll stay on the side of the document, so you'll just always know that you have to go back and make that correction, and then you can check it once it's complete, or you can make more comments to yourself, further explanation, so it's not crowding what you're writing in that document. So that was pretty helpful for me, especially when I was trying to get day and night together. I realized it took some time, but as I was writing the book, I was like, this can't all happen in the same day, or do people know that we have switched to a new day? And with that happening, like I did have to move full chapters because I was like, I don't think the timeline is translating. And that was a time. We're better at it now because, you know, that's something I think of. But at the time I wasn't, but I was putting the little comments on the side to say, okay, this has started a new day. This person is here. And so I would know that, but then it was translating it into the story. So readers could then know that, you know, we're on another day, or this is the same day, but, you know, we're continuing from a different person's point of view. It was definitely trials and tribulations for sure. And another thing, so like this font and stuff here, I did not pick the font out for any of it. I did, in fact, you know, write my own dedication, but again, didn't do the font, and then the acknowledgements I wrote as well. So when I was writing in Google Docs, it was a different font than what's here in the book, but for the most part it was fairly similar. But again, I didn't know exactly how everything was supposed to go, but I do believe, you know, you can have some input on those fonts that you would like to see. But I think, you know, I was just excited that a publishing company had reached back out to me, and they were like, you know, we're interested in having your book. This is something that would fit right in with other books we have. So I didn't really know that, you know, too much about what I can change, what I can't, as well as like graphics and things. I had some graphics in the original, like when I was in the Google Docs, but they did not show up in the book. It's not a bummer, but it just would have gave some visual context. And also some of the writing I wanted to say. So when it came down to the blurb that's on the back of the book, the publishing company, they came up with a blurb based on reading my manuscript. And then this little blurb about the author is, you know, me, myself, and I did that, but they, you know, tweaked it just so it could read better and so forth. And then I just sent them a picture. This is a headshot I have and sent them that. And these fonts I didn't choose either, but when I sent them ideas of what I wanted, they just kind of chose fonts that were similar to that. yeah, I'm trying to think of like if I covered anything. So when I finished writing, I did do some like double checking. I had Grammarly open through my Google Docs, so it would go in and see what was misspelled, what wasn't, you know, could this be better written, so forth. So I went through that, made sure everything was good with Grammarly, and then I started reaching out to publishing companies. You know, once I did hear back, it's a whole little process, but they essentially give you someone that's like your main point of contact, and then they give you someone for design and for editing. The editing process, they go through the actual manuscript that I have, and they made grammar edits, but also before anything was finalized, they did send it back to me to look over, and what it looked like, I could see all the edits and changes that they made. And essentially I just had to go through and let them know if I agree with the edits, if I don't. But most of them, it was just like small grammar edits that was being happen, nothing pivotal to the story. So I did go through that. It takes a lot longer than you think, because not necessarily just looking for the edits that they made, but actually reading the story and making sure the edits flow and everything is good. Doing that, and then I reached back out to them. I think we might have done 2-3 different rounds of edits. And I got the final look and everything before all of that, but I think we did it a couple times, definitely more than one, but it was the same person, and they would just send it to me. Usually, I'm pretty sure they gave like a deadline, could you review this by X date and so forth, just so we could be on schedule. And yeah, that process went really good. And if I had any further questions, I could reach out to either the main point of contact they gave me or reach out to that editor. Usually I was pretty good on like questions, didn't really have anything. The edits made sense. It didn't change the essence of the story, so that was fine. And I'm trying to think back. I think once edits were complete, it was just making sure all the payments were in before they could actually print out a book. And I remember when I finally got the news that I was gonna have the book in hand, it was crazy to think, you know, like I wrote all of this and it was finally going to be published. Insane, kind of crazy to think, like what? But yeah, that was the writing process. You know, we started on Wattpad and then it became a published book. And it took me about 5 months to write. I wrote it during my senior year of undergrad. At this point, I was actually at home because of COVID. I went home during my junior year. So I had more free time. Like I was still doing school, but our schedules had changed. We weren't doing like the traditional schooling because junior year we were completely virtual, and then my senior year we went hybrid. So we had people on campus, we had people remote, we had people, you know, coming to campus at certain times and so forth. So with that schedule happening, I had more flexibility to write and read. Also, I just remembered, I didn't say this, but I also have poetry in my book. And that obviously was not the original plan. I'm trying to find a page that has poetry. That was not an original plan. Like when I started the book on Wattpad, that did not happen. But my senior year, I took a creative writing class. Well, I took 2 creative writing classes. And, you know, started to look into poetry. We're doing all these different types, you know, like haikus and so forth. This is one. I'm gonna leave too much up, but you can see. So I have poems throughout the book, but they either correlate with the chapter that has just passed or the chapter that's going to be after this book. So it makes sense. And not just like random poetry, it ties into the story. And that was because we did a lot of poetry in my creative writing classes. We also did like short stories, different prompts and so forth. But I was really exploring the poetry, and I had built up a really good relationship with my professor. So this was something I wanted to try to incorporate in the book to see, you know, like what would happen if I did. And some of the poems I actually did in my creative writing classes made it into the book because I was like, these are actually really good poems. And as I was writing, I wasn't necessarily like looking for a poem, but I was like, this poem actually kind of goes with what's going on right here. So let me insert this here. Like, can I find a place for that? And then kind of once I went through all of the poems that I really, really liked in my creative writing classes, I started just doing poems every now and then. I think there might be a total of 8 poems. 8 poems in this book, and they're just throughout the book, but again, they correlate with what's happening. And maybe half of them came from my creative writing classes. Again, we did other poems, but I just picked the best poems that I did from the classes to go into the book. And once I started that, I was like, I obviously have to continue it throughout because it just makes sense. And so some of the other poems I did have like a little journal. I don't have it here, but I had a little journal where I started writing down poems or writing down sentences that I thought could be something, and created more poems to go in the book. And I think it ended up being 8 just because when I did a poem would be a chapter in my book, but obviously it's not like a full-length chapter. It might be like 1 or 2 pages depending upon the style of the poem, what that would look like. So yeah, I decided to incorporate that because I was like, why not? I think it goes with the vibe of the book. It adds a little something else, and the poems are not necessarily through anyone's point of view, but like if it's right after a chapter or before a chapter, a reader might perceive it as someone's point of view. So that part is, you know, like open to interpretation, but yeah, it's not specified. So that's, you know, I think now that's the entire writing process that I've done for book 1. We are currently working on book 2. I'm writing that. I did start it in Google Docs, but after doing some research, I heard people saying that Pages is actually really good. Pages is free. It comes on like all your Apple products or whatever. So I have switched to Pages. I am at about 182 pages written for book 2, and it is all correctly formatted. I have picked like the fonts and stuff that I want. It's looking good, to say. So yeah, it's more pages than we have here, and we're definitely not stopping at 182. We still have a ways to go. I'm thinking book 2 could be around like 250 pages. Maybe book 2 also, I'm not saying too much obviously, but book 2 has more point of views this time around because a lot has happened. It's getting juicy, so there is that to look forward to. I've been on the fence about if I want to add graphics and stuff in book 2. I haven't decided yet, but the formatting that you see in book 1, so just to show, so like how we have this too, where I do words and, you know, whether it's an adjective or a noun, and then have like a sentence, that is still the same. And I decided to do this because it was helping me. Like, for example, this book wealthy, an adjective. Having a great deal of money, resources, or assets, rich. And then in parentheses, the wealthy live in Rose City, close parentheses. So I did those, and the sentences that I use to describe what the word is are actually sentences that are used throughout the book. That's a little clue. Some of them are used maybe in the same chapter as this introduction to the word, and some of them are used later down the line, but it gets people thinking or guessing. So that stays the same. The poems stay the same as well. I think I've already picked out all the poems that I have, or I've already written all the poems. I'm pretty sure it's between 8 and 10 poems in book 2, because book 2 has more chapters than book 1. I'm not going to say how many chapters, but yeah, book 2 has more chapters than book 1. So, you know, we have to add some more stuff in there. But writing in Pages is good too. They have the feature where you can add comments as well. They just don't show up on the side. The word or whatever will be highlighted and you click it and it'll show up somewhere else. So I've been doing that as well, because sometimes I can start and I'm like, it's not fleshed out yet. Let me add that comment so I can remember to do that. But it's been a good process in Pages as well. And, you know, with Pages, it's on my phone, it's on my laptop, it's on my iPad. So I technically, you know, can write everywhere, because, you know, Pages comes on all Apple products. I don't know if I lost y'all for a moment, but yeah, Pages comes on all Apple products. So I technically can just write my book whenever. And that will happen sometimes. I get an idea and I'm like, I need to type that out now while it's fresh in my head. Or I'll do like a voice note or something just while the idea is fresh. So yeah, that's been going really well. And I'm hoping to have more information about book 2 soon. I have already started working on the cover as well. And I think I'm at a point where I like the cover design. We're not gonna reveal anything until, you know, book 2 is closer to being done, but it's getting there. I feel like, you know, we're close. We're closing in. But yeah, so the writing process is a little different this time around, only because, you know, I've been through it the first time. I have more information. I'm definitely a better writer than I was the first time around. So yeah, we're going into it with more information, a better skill set, and I'm enjoying it, how things are going. And one thing that I do like about writing it in Pages is I have my 2 pages side by side. So as it would be in the book, I can see both pages like that when I'm writing, and I think that really helps, you know, because I know what it'll look like, the side by side, and just in case I don't have to scroll back up, scroll back down when I'm trying to make changes, because it's right there. So that has also been really helpful for, you know, this second process. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Things are going well. I'm very, very excited for book 2. I've been trying to be more active on my socials for book 2, so I will have that information in the description box below, so you can follow me on socials to stay up to date on what's happening with book 2. And of course, I will definitely be doing some more writing with future projects, but you know, we need to complete this series. We need to complete this series first, so that's what I am doing. Yeah, and you know, the next entry we'll talk about something else. I don't know what that something else will be just yet, but we'll get into it. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more, please hit the subscribe button down below. Peace and blessings, my loves.